Nearly 50 people have been arrested after a night of rioting in North London. Petrol bombs were thrown, vehicles and buildings set on fire, and shops were looted. As local people survey the damage, community and political leaders have condemned the destruction.
This is a disgrace, as so many of my constituents have said to me as I've walked up and talked to them. This must stop.
Emergency discussions about the debt crisis in the Eurozone amid anxiety about how the morning's markets will react. And the comeback kings as Manchester United beats Manchester City at Wembley. Hello, good evening. Nearly 50 people are in police custody this evening after rioters attacked police, set fire to buildings and looted shops in Tottenham in North London. 29 people were injured in the violence, most of them police officers. The trouble developed after a peaceful protest about the death of a local man, Mark Duggan, who was shot dead by police on Thursday. Downing Street has described the rioting as utterly unacceptable. Our correspondent Matt Prodger has been monitoring events.
This was Tottenham High Road late last night. At one end, officers in riot gear. At the other, the young men they're trying to police. This was the main shopping street, the commercial heart of the community, turned into a battle zone. Bricks, firecrackers and flames filled the night air. Shops and homes were destroyed. More than 24 police officers hurt. From a vantage point high in a building, running battles could be seen on the street below. This followed a peaceful protest at the death of a man in a police shooting last week. There's no question the police were targets last night. Here an empty squad car was attacked before being set ablaze. But there was vandalism and looting too. Eyewitnesses said it was anarchy.
The looting was crazy. I mean, the PC world, there's nothing left in that shop. It's all gone now. Everything's just gone.
Even several hours after the violence began, at first light, the looting went on apparently unhindered. Here people made off with clothing. Today police rejected claims they'd been slow to catch up with events and hadn't been prepared enough for the earlier protest.
We kept a dignified response to that to allow that protest to take place. However, once that extreme violence, and it was violence that could not be anticipated on that scale, occurred, we moved the appropriate level of resources in.
As residents picked through the wreckage of their neighbourhood, the government today praised the police. It said the rioters would feel the full force of the law. The looting and vandalism drew anger too from the local MP, who described last night as an assault on the community.
We now need restraint and calm. And I say to those who wanted to come to Tottenham to cause violence and disturbance to stay away. We don't need you. We don't want 25 years of rebuilding community and trust destroyed because of mindless nonsense.
Last night, Tottenham paid a heavy price. It is one of London's poorest areas and can ill afford the damage this has done to community and livelihood. Matt Prodger, BBC News.
Well, this evening, the family of the man who was shot by the police on Thursday, Mark Duggan, said they did not condone the rioting. His shooting is being investigated by the Independent Police Complaints Commission. Before the trouble flared, they'd taken part in a peaceful march to Tottenham Police Station from Broadwater Farm, the scene of the rioting in 1985, during which a police officer, Keith Blakelock, was killed. Our Home Affairs correspondent, June Kelly, sent this report from Broadwater Farm.
The Broadwater Farm Estate, the location which was the starting point for last night's events. It was from here that the protest march set off. Many here knew Mark Duggan, the man who was shot by police.
They killed him, and, because they were law unto themselves, they could put all these things in the paper saying he was this, he was that, I don't see my friend being in the car, and surrounded by armed police, and he's going to jump out and open fire on armed police. How does that make sense?
26 years ago, Broadwater Farm became the most infamous estate in the country. And then, as now, it was a death which became a trigger for the disturbances. Cynthia Jarrett died as police, who had arrested her son, searched her home. In the riots that followed, a Metropolitan Police officer, Constable Keith Blakelock, was murdered. People who've lived in this neighbourhood for a long time have told us they're upset that all these years on, it's back in the news once again for negative reasons. Most won't go on camera, but events of the past few days have sparked a debate about the wider issues here.
There's a breakdown of communication and it has to be fixed.
Among those who know the Tottenham area well is Sonia, who didn't want to give her full name.
There's young people that's never worked. They've left school and they're now in their late 20s and they've never had a job. And it's not because they don't want to work.
Others here are angry at outsiders, who they say came into the area because they wanted to join the mob violence.
I've seen people in this area I've never seen in my life. Yeah, I said to people, I honestly believe there was even one or two anarchists that were flowing in the area as well. So opportunities were bound to come down.
But they acknowledge that some young locals have little to do as the council cuts bite.
One of the best youth facilities in our area, and it's now shut down.
Yeah.
And they were doing positive. They allowed people like myself to use there and hold youth projects there.
Yeah.
Now that's been closed down. Where do we use?
And then there are relationships with the police.
The police haven't really communicated directly with the youth here, and it's caused a problem, so they feel that they have no word and no voice. The voice that they think is good, but which is wrong, is actually smashing up things, so they'll see their voice get heard.
The family of Mark Duggan, the man who was shot by police, say they do not condone the actions taken overnight in his name. They say they realise people are frustrated and angry, but they've appealed for an end to the violence. June Kelly, BBC News, Tottenham.
Well, our correspondent John Brain is there now. What's happening there this evening, John?
Well, Jane, a fairly subdued atmosphere in this part of North London this evening. There's people still coming to terms with the night of rioting which caused such devastation on their high street. And much of that street is in fact now a crime scene, about half a mile of it, as police officers continue their investigations. They'll be here all night, and you can probably see the remains of the two burnt-out police cars. But the question for police, community leaders and politicians is, was this a peaceful protest which was hijacked by criminal elements, or was it about something more fundamental? Well, it'll probably take days, weeks and months of calm reflection before the answer to that is known. Jane.
John, thank you. John Brain. And now the rest of the day's news. And the NATO-led forces in Afghanistan say 4 of their soldiers have been killed in 2 separate attacks. 2 French soldiers died and 5 were wounded when they came under fire from insurgents north of Kabul. The 2 other soldiers were killed in the south of the country. Their nationalities have not yet been disclosed. Officials from the European Central Bank are holding talks this evening to look at ways of stopping the international debt crisis spreading and steady the markets before they open on Monday morning. Our business correspondent Joe Lynham is with me. That's a crucial meeting, really, Joe. We think that's underway now?
Yeah, I understand that it has started, and the reason that there is because the